This podcast is sponsored by the Music Player Network at musicplayer.com, the premier musician resource for keyboard players and beyond. Since the year 2000, the Music Player Network has been the go-to source for news and views on music technology, playing tips, and gigging help. The Keyboard Corner is one of the longest-running keyboard forums in internet history, with guitar, bass, drum, and numerous recording and music tech forums also on offer. Frequented by weekend warriors, manufacturers' representatives, and professionals alike, MPN provides an invaluable resource for any musician, and it's 100% free to sign up and use. Go to www.musicplayer.com to see for yourself.
Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Keyboard Chronicles, a podcast for keyboard players of the gigging variety. I'm your host, David Holloway, and it's great as always to be here with you. And I'd also like to do a big welcome for the second time to Mr. Matt Goodluck. How are you, Matt?
G'day, David. Great to be back again.
Yeah, no, look, as our resident prog guru and Paul being able to make this gig, it's lovely to have you back on board. And the reason we have you on board as our prog guru is because we are about to interview Mr. Geoff Downes,
Yes.
obviously of
Yes,
Asia, yes, from the prog viewpoint fame, and obviously has done a massive amount more than that, as you'll hear during the interview. So, it was an absolute pleasure catching up with Geoff, and I believe you'll enjoy this one a great deal. Geoff, can't thank you enough for joining us. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, nice to be here. Nice to be connected over the around the globe, as it were.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely our pleasure. And are you getting out and about a little bit more in the UK? It's sort of opening up a little bit.
Yeah, it is a little bit. I think there's still a bit of trepidation about about going out full on like it was before. But certainly, we've seen quite a bit of movement from where it was this time last year, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And over that time, Geoff, I know you do a lot of studio work. Have you kept busy in the studio doing either your own work or producing for other people? How have you sort of kept yourself busy over that time?
Well, I've done a couple of albums in the lockdown period. Obviously, the Yes album, as we finished that a few months ago, that's coming out next in the beginning of October. I've done an album with a project that I've been working on for about 10 years with a guy called Chris Braid, a songwriter. And so, and a couple of production ideas, and a few people have sent me a few files, a few overdubs, and I've been cleaning my studio up. So I've been, for the large part, I've been quite busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll definitely be talking both about Downes Braid and the new Yes album. So looking forward to that. I just need to start with a bit of an interesting early question. I discovered earlier today you actually have played the world's largest organ in good old Australia.
I have in Sydney Opera House, which was an incredible experience. And I was taken round into where all the pipes are. And that was a fantastic experience to see. The size. It's almost like like someone's mansion at the back full of pipes. It's huge. So it's brilliant. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be able to rattle a couple of tunes out on it.
Nice.
what a great experience. So, Geoff, I've got a question for you. You hit the number one spot on the charts around the world back in 1980 with the Buggles, and then you jumped into Yes, which saw you release the excellent Drama album. And the subsequent tour had you selling out 3 consecutive nights at Madison Square Gardens. Then a couple of years later, you had the best-selling album of 1982 in America with Asia's debut. Must have felt like you were just living a dream at the beginning of the 80s.
Yeah, I mean, that was, I had a hell of a run for a couple of years, that's for sure. And, the great thing is that I'm still involved with all of those 3 bands that that I was involved with them, which says a lot. So we've got on 40 years, and I'm still involved with all of those bands. So it's just kind of it's almost come full circle over the last few years.
Absolutely. So when you got into Yes back in 1980, you'd come from having this worldwide smash hit, and then you quickly jumped into this well-established prog band who at that stage weren't really known for hit singles. So how did you find the transition going from playing 3-minute pop songs to learning to play these more intricately composed epics on tour?
Well, I think at the time, Yes were going through quite a big change, not just in personnel, but in their thinking, because they'd done the 70s. They'd played these huge arenas and done these extravagant productions and these great big long symphonic pieces that lasted 20 minutes. And I think that when we joined them, I think they were very interested in changing the direction. I mean, it was the turn of the into the 80s, and I think Yes were looking. Certainly, Steve, Chris, and Alan at the time were looking to do something a bit different. And so when Trevor and I joined, it was very much a case of, well, I think we brought. The Buggles was very much about technology. That was our theme in a lot of the songs. So I think we brought that aspect into Yes's music, which at the time people were. Yes had always been about bucolic scenes and pastoral scenarios and all that sort of stuff, and we were like these two techno guys who came in and started to shake up the foundations of, as you say, this very revered, established band of musicians. So at the time, I think it was a surprise. And we had a bit of resistance from quite a lot of the fans, but I think as time has gone by, the Drama album has become something of a, it's become something of an item in Yes's catalogue, which, is an incredible catalogue of music.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that there was some resistance there to some degree. I've certainly read over the years about the resistance to Trevor being lead singer, who I understand that the fans in the UK weren't aware of the two of you being in the band when the tour got to the UK.
Yeah, I think it was okay in America because most of the audience was stoned and they didn't they didn't really realise that there'd been any change, because Yes, we're in this middle of we're in the middle of this arena on this round stage, and I think they were just interested in the experience of Yes. But I think when we took it to the UK, it was that the eye of the scrutiny was far more exaggerated, and because we were playing the smaller theatres, and we were just literally, it wasn't so much of a show, it was really just about the band. And I think that, Trevor got a lot more stick than I did, I think, ultimately, because him being the vocalist and replacing John Anderson, who'd never been replaced before. At that time, I was the fourth Yes keyboard player, so I got a bit of an easier ride, I think, generally, because they'd already accepted that the keyboard chair had been occupied quite a few times before. But it was tough on Trevor. But, as I say, in hindsight, I think the album still stands up today as being, a very significant album in Yes's history.
Absolutely. Well, it's certainly one of my favourite Yes albums, I must say.
Thank you.
You mentioned earlier at the start that obviously Yes is about to release their 22nd studio album, The Quest, and it's obviously the first one without Chris Squire being in the band. What's different for you about Yes in the year 2021 compared to the Yes of 1980?
Well, of course, without Chris, it's difficult, because Chris was, this was the first album without him, as you pointed out. He was there from the very beginning. And really the maker of, I think, in many ways, obviously John Anderson's contribution as a vocalist and writer is significant, but Chris has had a vision for Yes, I think, that really carried it through all the different chapters. And so I think when we lost Chris, it was really a turning point for Yes, and I think that Billy was really the obvious candidate to come in, and that was sanctioned by Chris at the time when Chris was sick and couldn't do the tour. So, and sadly passed away. So when Billy came in, I think that we pooled our resources and thought, Yes Music, Chris wanted Yes to carry on. We all wanted to carry on in the band. So since that time, we've been, I think, one of the longest, if not the longest, 6-year without any personnel change, which is incredible, really. And so we've got this closeness, this camaraderie, and I think that was important in the fact that we wanted to make an album and bring everyone together to show that we just weren't, a band assembled going out playing Yes Music, to show that we've actually got some justification and some great ideas to continue Yes as an entity.
Sure.
And I think it's an impressive thing on its own, Geoff, that, both Chris, gave the indication he wanted it to continue, and there's still enough of a driving passion there amongst the remaining core members to keep it going. I think it's amazing, let alone produce a new album of work. And I mean, the quest is, I've enjoyed the hell out of listening to it over the last week or so. What are the standout moments for you in either the recording of that or anything surrounding that album? How's it resonated with you, given you're so far down the track with the band?
Well, I think we came off the last album, 2014, which of course included Chris and Heaven and Earth, and I don't think we were really that satisfied with that album, how it turned out. I don't think it was recorded particularly well. I think we rushed some of the songs. I mean, there were good moments on the album, don't get me wrong, but I think that, in terms of what the fans were expecting, it wasn't really it was quite a linear album in some respects. So I think bearing that in mind, we wanted to come back with something that had a lot more dynamics in it. So we had those quiet sections. We have the high impact sections with the rhythm section where you're flying all over the place. So to me, it's really the way that I think Yes maybe should have gone on the last album. So we've caught up a bit of ground, and I think that the album has turned out really well. I think that you can hear everybody playing great parts, great music. I think John Davison has come to the fore as a writer and as a performer. So it's onward, really. I think that we're happy to be still around making music and still going out, hopefully going out in the new year. So it's ongoing, really. Yes is an ongoing thing. I think that Chris wanted that, and Chris said that he said when we're all gone, there'll still be Yes Music now, and
that's right.
We're keeping that legacy going.
No, that's great. And so the actual recording process, Geoff, was it different to previous albums, or you was it quite remote, or you did manage to spend some time in the studio together? How did it come together?
We spent a bit of time in the studio, but only over in the UK because, of course, Billy and Alan had to do their rhythm parts, the rhythm section in the States. So, it was a different way of working, of course, but I think we were all in touch. We had sort of conference calls or Zoom every week or so, and everyone was exchanging ideas and getting updates on all the mixes and that sort of stuff. And of course, Steve producing it, I think he was very central to pulling it all together, and he did a great job with that. Working with Curtis Schwartz, the engineer producer. So I think in terms of the actual album, I think it's been very well recorded. I think it's been very well put together, and so I mean we're optimistic that the fans will actually get off on it and enjoy it.
Sounds great. And obviously you're with a brand new record label as well for the Quest.
Yeah, I think that Steve's been with Inside Out for quite some time, and I know Steve Hackett's with Inside Out as well. So it's a nice change for us. I think that we were with Frontiers for quite a long time, and and Inside Out, very, very excited about this album. And Thomas Varber, the head of Inside Out, has been a very great supporter of everything we've done, certainly with this album and hopefully beyond that. So it's been a nice mix of not just the band being together, albeit separated geographically for quite long periods, but we've always had the support of the record label, which has been very, very forthcoming.
That's excellent. Geoff, I'm going to take you back in time again just for a moment, back to 1990, which saw another big chart hit with the cover of Smoke on the Water by Rock 8 Armania, which you played on and co-produced. There was a dream lineup on that record, had some of the biggest names in rock. Can you talk a little bit about how you became involved in that, and were there any moments where you turned into a complete fanboy?
Well, I think that at the time, I know John D, who is he's lived in Australia for many, many years, and you probably know him. He was actually running the Yes fan club at the time, and he was very motivated behind the whole thing, and got everybody together. So it was a great. He asked me to co-produce it with Trevor Horn's engineer Gary Langan. So we went in the studio, and he managed to round up all these people to do it. So I got back, and I was playing. Chris was I'm going to the actual backing track now that we recorded. It was Chris on bass, and Roger Taylor from Queen on drums, and myself on keys. We had various. The lineup of guitarists was incredible. You know, we had Tony Iommi, Dave Gilmour, Brian May, Alex Lifeson. You know, all these huge guitar idols. And then, of course, the vocalists. We had Paul Rodgers, Ian Gillan, and Brian Adams, and all sorts of people. So it was incredible to experience, because I think it was done over a period of about 3 or 4 weekends, and every weekend I'd go in and sit in the producer's chair, and these guys would be coming in. Richie Blackmore would come in, and all sorts of people, you know, that I'd only ever worked with, never worked with before. So it was really, it was a great experience, and really enjoyed it.
And Geoff, obviously you've mentioned Trevor Horn there again, and not started out, because I actually do want to cover your history of coming into music originally as a child or young adult. But we as far as commercially, Trevor Horn was one of your original collaborators, and you still work together today. What do you think is the strength in that partnership over its many different guises?
I think because Trevor was very much a visionary in terms of production, and I think that's what he's been known for. And really, I was the more the musical side of it. Although Trevor's a great musician in his own right, he channeled himself towards being a producer, and is enormously successful, as we know. But I think that we worked very well together because, you know, I provided his kind of dream sounds and the dream music that he envisaged in the producer's chair. So it was really a very great combination, and I think, you know, I don't think we ever had a cross word. And I spoke to him last week. We talk all the time. In fact, I'm going to see him this weekend. He's on a festival with his band called the Rewind Festival. So it's as I said before, it's great to think that I'm still in touch with all of the people that I was in that magical period for about 3 or 4 years at the turn of the 70s, beginning of the 80s, that I made a lot of friends and a lot of people like Carl Palmer and obviously John Wetton and Chris and Steve Howe, who we still work with today. So it's been, I consider myself to have been in a very privileged position to be able to say that I've met all these people and worked with all these people.
No, absolutely. And I do want to do a call out to our listeners, and I will link to it in our show notes. There's an amazing video of Geoff and Trevor and this amazing, much larger band. I think it's around 2004, Geoff, where Trevor and yourself are on stage with the original backing vocalists from Video Killed the Radio start performing live. I apologise, I've forgotten what the venue or the occasion was. But
it was Wembley Arena.
Yeah, just absolutely amazing to watch, and I will link to it. Just it shows the power of the performers, and even though that's now 16 years ago itself, just absolutely worth a watch.
Yeah, and it was great, to because it was really more of a tribute to Trevor's, to Trevor's productions that he'd worked with Seal and the Pep Shop Boys and Frankie Goes to Hollywood. So, we opened the show with the two Buggles songs, Video Killed and Living in the Plastic Cage, and we had an orchestra and like a 40-piece band and all this. I mean, it was really over the top production, but we rehearsed very hard for it, and it was fun for me to play, with Grace Jones and learn all these other songs, the Tattoo and all this weird stuff that Trevor had been involved with. So it was kind of it was great to. I think it was a great show all round.
I've seen the video, Geoff, and it looks like it was an amazing show. It's a shame that we miss out on so many great performances down here in Australia. But you have been here a few times with Yes, and I've managed to come over and see you then. So that was fantastic. One band that never made it down here, which I believe that you're the only member to have played on every single album in the band's history, was Asia, of course. And we talked earlier about... I think it was the #1 album in America at the time.
Yeah, for 9 weeks, I think it was #1.
Now?
Yeah.
What's happening with Asia now? You mentioned that you're still working with them.
Yeah, well, we did it just before. Well, not just before the lockdown. It's probably we did a tour in America summer tour 2019, where we had Carl Palmer's ELP. Legacy band on the bill. We had Yes headlining. We had John Lodge, and we put together an Asia set, which was before we played with Yes. So I was on stage for probably 3 hours or so, and Steve came and joined us on some of the stuff. But I'd worked briefly the year before with Ron Bumblefoot Tal, who was. He's a very, very talented guy. He was in Guns N' Roses for quite a while, and he's in Sons of Apollo with Mike Portnoy now, and very talented guitarist and vocalist. So I asked him if he'd be interested in coming along and doing this Asia set with us, and he was really into it. So it's great to have him along because he really channeled John's vocals as best he could, and I think that. It sounded, he really took it seriously, and so he was very diligent in the way that he did everything, and it was a great tour. It was Carl, obviously, myself and Carl. So we had 3 original members there when Steve came and joined us halfway through. So it was a great tour. That the Royal Affair it was called, and that was the last time we worked with Asia. So I'm hoping that maybe we can do something next year, which is the 40th anniversary of Asia.
Wow.
And the first album anyway. And so, I mean, it's, I think that music, sadly, we can't replace John, obviously, but certainly I think that we should keep Asia's music alive as best we can.
Sure.
Here. And Geoff, I did mention I was interested just in your childhood to early adulthood. What started you off on this amazing journey originally? What ignited the spark for you?
I don't know. I just love music. And when my dad was a church organist, and there was a lot of music around my house. My mother played the piano. My brother played guitar. So there was always, my sister played the piano. Everyone played some musical instrument or something. And there were three siblings. So it was very much a case of music was there from the beginning, and I think I took it all in, and I was singing in choirs, and that had quite a big influence on me in terms of making music, I think generally. And then I got into playing in bands, and I started playing bass originally, and then realised I wasn't much good at that. So I used my piano and organ training to better effect, I think. And so from that point on, it was something that I always wanted to do. And I think I studied music at school, and then I was in the school choir, and then my music teacher was very, very positive and pushed me quite a bit. And so when I left school, I went to a music college, Leeds Music College, which was a really radical college at the time because it only really focused on modern music. It wasn't steeped in a lot of classical music. It was about 50-50, but nearly all the music colleges at the time were all straight ahead classical. But this one, we were studying people like Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock, and all these sort of influences that were coming in. So for me, it was really a bit of a dream because I always wanted to be in a band, and so I had this opportunity at the music college to be to school myself in that way of thinking.
And that was the kickoff, yeah. And it just occurred to me, Geoff, and apologies if I get the facts of this wrong, we did have the pleasure of interviewing Jan Pulsford a while back, and I've known Jan for many years. Yeah, I was going to say, and I know she was very, very, grateful for the opportunity she had to work with you. That was relative. It wouldn't have been as early in your career, but I believe that was fairly early in her career that she spent some quality time with you, I believe.
Yeah, we had the same band. I think it was the first band when I moved to finish music college.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
I moved to London, and I'd been at music college with actually Jan's boyfriend at the time, a guy called Tom Blades, a very talented guitarist, and he found me up a place in London. He'd just moved out of a place in London. And he'd moved down the road, and he said, I'm moving out of this apartment. Do you want to move? It was actually a big house. So he kind of got me into the room there with my girlfriend, and it was a kind of really weird house because we had like all these musicians and artists and weird sort of people, and Chrissy Hynde was in the house at the time. She was living there.
Wow.
And at that point, she was actually a music journalist for NME.
Oh, wow.
And so I used to hear her practice. She was getting guitar lessons from Chris Spedding at the time. And she wasn't very good, to be honest. So I thought, well, she's never going to get anywhere. I was sort of wrong about that one. But she was, so at that time, I was in a band with Tom and Jan. And we were, I can't remember what we were called, but it was kind of a funky, disco-y type band called Fly at the time.
Okay.
And so that's how I got to know Jan, and then she split up with her boyfriend, and I think she moved to, she split up with Tom, and I think she moved to Nashville.
Yes, yeah.
But I think I got her the gig.
That rings a bell to me, Geoff. I think she absolutely gave you the kudos for that. I do recall that. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think I got the gig. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Paul Weller or someone like that. But I can't remember who the artist was now. But they were touring America, and then I think she fell for the truck driver or something, or the coach driver, and stayed over and lived in Nashville for God knows how many years before she moved back a few years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and doing well. That's great. And the other thing I've been dying to ask about is obviously Downs Braid. So, I mean, you the two of you have had some wonderful albums released over the last, it'd be around a decade now, wouldn't it? And your one release this year was Halcyon Hymns, which again I've had a number of listens to, and is I'd have to argue is one of the most upbeat, positive, warm albums I've heard in a long time. Tell us about how that relationship's developed over the last 10 years.
Well, I think we started. I met him via Trevor, actually, because we we were doing a gig with Trevor back in 2010. We did a Buggles reunion gig in this little club in London, and Chris at the time was working with Trevor on the Producers album.
Oh, yeah.
So they were kind of together, and when I met Chris, he was playing the keyboards as well. So he said to me, look, it'd be really nice if we could work together sometime, because I'm a huge Buggles fan. So I said, okay, well, let's find an occasion. And it just so happened that Chris shortly after that moved to Los Angeles, and I was working in LA at the same time, virtually, with on the Fly From Here album, and the Yes Fly From Here album. So, and I just rejoined Yes at that time. So we started working together around I was working with Yes in the afternoon and going over to Chris's in the morning, and we started to assemble that first album. So that was really how we started working. And then I think thereafter, because he was over there and I was over in the UK, we started to collaborate via the internet, sending files to each other, and that way. So it was it's something that started up probably almost 10 years ago, working that way. So when it came to doing this the latest Yes album, it's not something that seemed particularly difficult for me to do, because I'd already spent 10 years. Well, I think we've done four studio albums with Chris now, so it was almost a natural way of working now. The days of sitting in a room and bashing out these great, which I miss it sometimes. I miss the fact that you can sit in a room and bash out an arrangement with the other guys in the band. But at the same time, I think it's very much more of a project, the one that I'm doing with Chris, and so it doesn't really have that necessarily a band image.
That's
it's
right.
more of a more of really a project.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we'll definitely be linking to that album as well. It's great. And so we need to talk gear for a minute. Geoff, what are your go-to pieces of gear? And I understand it will change depending on the project, but what are the pieces of gear, like keyboard gear, that you just still go to time and time again, or love at the moment?
Well, I think I was brought up on piano and organ, and really those are the things certainly those two instruments are the things that I'd always look to, and I think with the new Yes album, that's pretty heavily featured on there, because that was my upbringing. So I always reach out to those instruments, particularly the acoustic piano, but Hammond organ, Mellotron, Mini Moog, all those things still have a place, and they still, sound-wise, they always fit well with the band. I think, and I think that when you get into more than the digital keyboards, and I love messing around with keyboards. Don't get me wrong. I had the first guy to take a Fairlight CMI out on the road, which is courtesy of your Australian friends there.
That's right.
So yeah, I mean, that was groundbreaking as well to me, which was to have that ability to, I suppose, amalgamate analog instruments with digital instruments. And so that's something I've always been very interested in, is having the warmth of analog, but having the attack and preciseness of a sample or something like that. So that kind of combination is something that I suppose I've been working on that ever since I really got into messing around with keyboards, and it's still something that fascinates me today, albeit a lot of the stuff is virtual now. It still fascinates me to be able to get out there and push buttons and twizzle knobs and that sort of thing. It's great to be able to do that.
That's right. And I'd argue that one of your many claims to fame, aside from playing the world's largest organ at the Sydney Opera House, is also sharing Fairlight duties with Kate Bush on a track. I don't think there's many people that can claim they've done that. So
no, in fact, I showed Kate Bush how to use it.
There you go.
She was I think she was recording in the same studio, in the Townhouse studio, when we were in there with doing the first Asia album. So I'm going back to 81, something like that, and I think she looked at that in the studio and said, "What the hell's that?" And I said, "Oh, this is a Fairlight." She says, and I showed her a couple of things that it did. She went, "Wow!" She said, "I need that on my album."
Yes.
So yeah, she asked me, and I did like the horn samples that I'd worked on quite extensively. She asked me to come and play some horn stuff on Saturday in Your Lap. So it was great. She's a really, really wonderfully talented
Yes.
artist, as you know. So it was quite an honour to be working with her on that.
It's great. And so, I mean, obviously with an amazing career and hopefully a lot more years left in it, what are some of the key lessons, if you had the opportunity, you'd want to pass on to other keyboard players, Geoff?
Well, I think the lines have become a little bit blurred now, because keyboard playing has almost become part of the producer's chair. I think that
right.
because keyboards now have the ability to make virtually any sound, and if you listen to these huge string libraries from Spitfire Audio or Vienna Strings, it's all driven by keyboard playing. So I think that really it's rather than picking up a guitar, I would say that which I don't disagree with, because I love the sound of guitar as well. But I think that young guys coming through in music nowadays, they've pretty much got to have some kind of knowledge of keyboards. So I'd say that get stuck in and maybe learn how to play a piano, or learn how to play an organ, because this is the fundamental instruments that I consider to be, the source of all keyboard playing. So don't just buy a plastic keyboard synth or something like that. Get something with a weighted action. Get something that you can really put expression into, and that would be my advice.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I've said it before on this show, Geoff, and I'll say it again, that you can't say you're a keyboard player till you've spent some quality time with a B3. So you don't know what you've done until you've played a B3.
No, exactly. And the thing is, it's a totally different technique. The way that you have to take your hand off to add some tonal textures, and it all, it's sort of a very mechanical thing. You've got the swell pedal, you've got the Leslie switch on and off, and fast and slow. So there's a lot of and then the sweeps you do on the organ, and the way the drawbars. So there's a lot of things to remember. It's not just like you turn the organ on and you play the keyboard. There's all this technique that's involved with playing. When you listen to people like John Lord, and what amazing, and of course, my hero Keith Emerson, what those guys did with Hammond organ. That's really what I would say to young aspiring keyboard players is listen to those guys and listen to how they those sounds that they made.
That's right.
Geoff, you've worked with such an amazing lineup of musicians throughout your career. I'm just wondering if there are any other artists in particular that you've got a burning desire to work with, or any projects that you're really passionate about developing still?
I didn't really like, a chance. I always bumped into all these people in the studios, but I never got a chance to work with them. And I'm talking about people like Peter Gabriel, Sting. If ever I got a chance to work with those kind of guys, then I'd consider that I could learn a lot from those guys, and it'd be an interesting combination. But having said that, I'm just happy to keep going and keep making music. As I said before, I think it's a privilege, and I'm happy that I've managed to go 6 decades in the music business without having to do anything else.
Yes. And look, I think it's fair to say a lot's gone right for you, Geoff. But one of our favourite questions in every show is what hasn't gone right, and that's just purely an on-stage train wreck that's happened to you over the years. So whether it's a technical slip-up or just something that a song's not gone right, is there a memorable train wreck you can recall?
Oh God, yeah, there've been plenty of them. Yeah, it's a bit like the train's going all different directions. I've had keyboard rigs fall apart, where they just literally collapsed in front of me. I've had playing with a detuned instrument and coming in the wrong key. I mean, you name it. I've never actually ever had to cancel a gig, touch wood.
That's good.
So I've always been there and always turned up. So that's the one thing I can have a claim to fame for. But yeah, I mean, there's always things go wrong. Suddenly you can corpse out completely. I mean, yes, music, when you consider that's enormously complex. And there are times where I just literally, completely lost my place. I just know, whoa, where am I? So it does happen. But I think that, in the whole, it's something that, these things do happen. Actually, funny enough, one of the fans that I was talking to about coming to watch this, he said, I love it when it goes wrong because I've witnessed that myself, and that's a one-time experience I can remember. So there's upsides to it as well.
That's right. And I think when you mentioned about forgetting stuff in the middle of quite complex bits, I know a few of our guests have confirmed, and I know personally, that the more you think about where you are, the harder it is to pick it up, and you need to rely on muscle memory to some extent.
Yeah, that's right. And it's actually most unnerving when you're in a small venue and you've got like the audience are watching, they can see everything you're doing very, very closely. When you're in a big arena and the audience is as a sea of people, you can sort of feel quite hemmed off, almost isolated from the proceedings and just concentrate on what you do. So whereas when you've got people staring at you and breathing down you, checking you out, it's actually much more unnerving.
Yeah, that's right. And we're on to our last two questions, Geoff, and the second last one being we love to get our guests to tag a keyboard player, so someone else, either dead or alive, that they would love to hear interviewed. And I mean, I know you've already mentioned John Lord and Keith Emerson, but aside from those two icons, anyone you would love to hear or find out more about?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of my favourite bands of all time, which I'm going to probably tell you about, was Caravan.
Oh, yep.
David Sinclair was a big inspiration to me in a lot of ways because his Hammond playing was very, very, very unusual in the fact that he was really just playing single line lead solo parts that went on for hours and hours, and they're very, very melodic, very tuneful. He put Hammond through wah-wah pedal and stuff like that. So he would be someone I'd really like to pick his brains and go through and say, that song for Richard or whatever, I think that would be interesting for me to go through.
No, great pick. And then the last horror question, the Desert Island Disc question, Geoff. Five albums that maybe you could live without them, but just would be the top five if you had to choose them.
I'd definitely go have Land of the Grand Pink by Caravan. That would be
great.
That would be an album that was particularly special to me. ABBA Gold would be another one.
Oh, yeah.
I loved ABBA. That was a great. Both John Wetton and I were huge ABBA fans, and I'm not saying it influenced our music particularly, but it was something that we loved the way that it was all arranged. And
so it's funny you say that, Geoff. So I'll just interrupt there for a sec, because ABBA's always stood out to me. The production values are just beyond brilliant, and so to the arrangement as well. What's your take as a very experienced producer yourself on? What was the secret there aside from the great songs and arrangement? It is pristine music still now.
I think it's just incredible. I mean, I give a lot of credit to Benny Anderson with his keyboard lines and stuff like that, and those lovely chords, and it's not as simple as it sounds.
No.
It's that's the art of ABBA. I think is that there's all those little undercurrents, these little hooks that are going underneath the track. And I it was quite amazing because John Wetton and I wrote a song for Agneta Velsko that appeared on one of her albums. And it was interesting to go around Polish studios where they recorded all this stuff, and we worked with the rhythm section, a bass player called Rutger Gunnarsson, and he was actually one of the main guys that arranged all the rhythm section stuff, and
wow.
So he was just really a hired gun that they used extensively to do that side of things. But I mean, it's just amazing volume of great tracks and a lot of dynamics and beautifully recorded stuff. So they really had it all together, I think.
They did. Great. Sorry for the interruption, but that's a great second album you picked there, yeah.
Yeah. I'd probably go for number 3 would probably be Foreigner 4.
Oh, yeah.
Because again, the production's incredible. Mark Langer's production on that is amazing, and there's not a bad song on that album.
No,
it's just got everything going for it. I think that in terms of, I think it was out shortly before the Asia album, and I remember thinking, these songs are so great, and Lou Graham's voice is incredible. Mick Jones, who I met, he actually asked me to join Foreigner several times. But I was doing other things, but every time I was either in Yes or I was in Asia or whatever. But so I never got the opportunity to join Foreigner. But as I say, he asked me a couple of times, or his manager asked me, and it didn't happen. But it's probably a good thing, because Foreigner, they continue today, and they're doing great things, and that album to me is one of the best rock albums of all time.
Great album. I think Thomas Dolby played keyboards on that, didn't he?
He did, and of course Thomas Dolby was Bruce Willis' keyboard player who co-wrote Video Killed a Radio Star. So it's yeah. See, I mean, the thing was when we all started off in London round about the beginning. Well, I started off around about mid-70s. It's a very small place. You bump into a lot of people, and everyone seems to be quite closely connected. So there were rehearsal rooms that people would always be in. That's how, of course, we got to meet up with Yes, because we were in the same rehearsal room. So there's a lot of you just bumped into all these people who later, as I said, I was living with Chrissy Hines.
Yes.
So it was this little hub of activity that you always ended up. The studios were a lot of recording studios at that time, so you always ended up meeting people, sitting there having a coffee with, I don't know, Phil Collins or Ozzy Osbourne, whoever.
Yes.
It was that was the kind of place that it was. So I was sort of grateful to be associated at that time. I'm sure it doesn't work like that anymore, because of course there are hardly any actual recordings.
Yeah,
everyone's working from home. But so great times, and that's how the Thomas Dolby connection came about.
That's amazing. So that's 3 great albums. You're really hitting them out of the park, Geoff. So the last 2, any 2 other ones you would love?
I think What's Going On by
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye. I was really when I was at college, I really got into Motown, and just the arrangements, the string arrangements, the fact that the productions were incredible. All these orchestral instruments that they'd used, like bassoons and oboes on some of these Tamla Motown records. And so, but I think that vocally, Marvin Gaye's voice on that album is quite special. And, I always appreciate great singers, and one of the things like with Asia, John Wetton, his voice was a fantastic singer. I worked with Greg Lake on a project, another great voice. So I'm always drawn to great singers, and that was something that I think it became essential to me to focus on on the voice.
Yes.
So that was it for me, really.
Great. And then last one, Geoff, last album.
I think I've got to put a Beatles album in there.
Yeah,
and I think the White Album, the double album, is a fantastic piece of work. I think that really defined the Beatles. I know Sgt. Pepper's was a groundbreaking album in its own way, but I think the White Album really stretched out, and you could see all the individual elements of the Beatles, what they were capable of. And so to me, that's probably one of the great albums of all time.
Geoff, one more question before we let you go. Last night I was doing a little bit of trolling on YouTube, checking out some videos, and I stumbled across the video for Go from the Astra album, Asia.
Oh, wow, yeah.
What an amazing slice of 80s video clip there.
Yeah, and the hairstyles are something else, aren't they?
Remember about it? John Wetton looks like Ozzy Osbourne in the 80s period.
Yeah, I know. They were heavy on makeup, big on hair. That was the era. But it's a lot of people really like that album. Some people.
It's a great album.
At that point, I think we'd lost a bit of traction with Asia, but I think as the album as a standalone item really worked well. So that's a period piece, the Go video. And,
Speaking of period pieces, though, Geoff, with the 80s, there were some iconic sounds there, and I was unaware of this connection until doing the research for this show. One of my favourite albums of the 1980s is Mike Oldfield's Islands, which you also featured on in one of the songs, and it's a brilliant song. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, working with Mike was a great experience.
Yeah,
not so much as the fact that he's a fantastic musician, but he was also an incredible producer and an engineer. I was surprised at the speed of his engineering skills, but it was good fun working with him. We went in a villa out up in France somewhere, and up in the mountains, and it was good. It was just him and I. We just literally just got on with it, and it was very, very interesting experience because he's as I said, he's an amazing producer and engineer.
And my thoughts and prayers to Mike doing it hard out in the Bahamas now. I do feel for him.
Yes, tough life.
Tough life. So, Geoff, look, I cannot thank you enough for the time you've spent with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to both Yes and Asia going on from strength to strength, and hopefully seeing one or both of those outfits out in Australia again eventually. We're very much looking forward to it.
I hope so. We miss it.
Yeah, no, great pleasure having you on. Thank you. And there we have it. Look, as always, that was a pleasure. Matt, what a great guy Geoff is, and just, again, what an amazing career.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look at the types of people he's played with. It's what an enviable list.
It is, and for those of you that haven't been to the Sydney Opera House, seeing is believing the size of the organ installation there. It is just amazing. But yeah, just the scope of Geoff's career is just gobsmacking, and he's certainly not done yet by any stretch of the imagination.
Absolutely. I mean, the guy's played on one of my favourite Yes albums, so it was a real pleasure to have a chat with him.
Yes, and please do check the show notes. I said between the breakdowns and all the other stuff that we've linked to it is well and truly worth a check out. But yes, thanks, and we'll be back again in a few weeks. But just a reminder, you can keep in touch via a few means, and thanks to those, we have had a couple of emails in the last couple of weeks, so really appreciate that as always. Our website is www.keyboardchronicles.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Keyboard Chronicles and on Twitter at the Keyboard CHR1. Also, a big shout out. We've had some nice chats on Twitter recently with some listeners and other keyboard players. That's always good fun. But as always, if you like good old-fashioned email, then do drop us a line at editor@keyboardchronicles.com. If you would like to become an official supporter, we do have a Patreon account where for the price of a coffee a month, you can help us go from strength to strength. The first set of bonus content is up there at the moment with more to come, much more to come. So if you are interested in doing that, www.patreon.com/Keyboard Chronicles, just for something different. So, Matt, thanks again hugely for joining me this episode.
Thank you, David. Absolute pleasure.
And most importantly, thanks to you all out there for listening around the world. And we hope to see you back here next episode.